Well, good afternoon. I'm Michelle Easton, president of the Clare Boothe Luce Policy Institute. And I want to thank you all for coming today, and I want to welcome you to the June Conservative Women's Network Lunch. Special thanks to our CWN co-host, Bridget Wagner here, our partner in these luncheons since 1999. It's great to see so many students here today, mostly summer interns, and I know you all got a special student folder. If you'd like to talk to us about the possibility of bringing one of our great conservative women leaders to speak at your campus, please fill out that little card in the folder because we'd love to work with you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Senator Joni Ernst. Last November, after a feisty campaign that showed she isn't afraid to take on liberals and their failing policies, Senator Ernst was elected as the first woman to serve in federal elected office from the state of Iowa. She also became the first female combat veteran elected to serve in the United States Senate. As senator, she's focused on growing a vibrant economy and ensuring that the government runs effectively and efficiently. That means cutting out-of-control spending, reducing taxes, eliminating harmful regulations, and balancing the budget. She serves on 4 Senate committees: Armed Services, Agriculture, Nutrition and Forestry, Homeland Security and Government Affairs, and Small Business and Entrepreneurship. She was born and raised on a farm, and her parents instilled in her the values of hard work, sacrifice, and service. She received her undergraduate degree from Iowa State University, where she joined the university's ROTC program. After graduating, she joined the U.S. Army Reserves, and in 2003, she served as a company commander in Kuwait and Iraq, leading 150 Iowa Army National Guardsmen during Operation Iraqi Freedom, and she continues to serve as Lieutenant Colonel in the Iowa Army National Guard. Now, when I first met Senator Ernst, I shared how I had gone to work for President Reagan at the U.S. Department of Education to help him close it, because education decisions should be first with parents, then with the local jurisdiction, and then with the state. And I was so delighted to learn that Senator Ernst is still working to eliminate the federal education department and to put education back where it belongs. She's dedicated her life to serving her state and her country, serving over 20 years in the military, serving as an Iowa State Senator, and now as a United States Senator. Not only is she a wife, mother, and soldier, public servant, she's a bold and intelligent voice for conservative women and men all across America. She resides in Red Oak, Iowa, with her husband, Gail, and their daughter, Libby, who I think is here.
Libby's here with us today.
Hi, Libby. You got a great mother. Please join me in welcoming Senator Joni Ernst. Thank you.
Oh, hello, everyone. It is really great to be here with you today in Washington, D.C. It was quite a feisty campaign, I will admit that. But, you know, we decided to change direction in Iowa, and I think we saw that all across the United States as well. So many times over, so many people have heard me say that it is a long ways from Red Oak, Iowa to Washington, D.C. I grew up on a very small family farm in southwest Iowa, and we did raise hogs. Many of you might be familiar with my hog skills out there, as evidenced by the first campaign commercial that we released very early on. But we also raised soybeans and corn. And my parents really did instill in me the importance of hard work. We knew the value of $1, and that's really where my conservative roots really dug in deep to the ground, and I was raised with that all through my life, and so I do credit that to my upbringing in the Midwest. So they did instill in me that hard work, that service, and that sacrifice, and that's what I want to bring to Washington, D.C. I don't want to take Washington, D.C. back to Iowa. I want to keep Iowa here in Washington, D.C., and that's evidently what the voters of Iowa wanted as well. For over 2 decades, I have served in the United States Armed Forces, and it is a great honor for me to wear our nation's uniform. I still serve as a lieutenant colonel in the Iowa Army National Guard, and I have been privileged to have led at all levels, from platoon leader all the way up through battalion command. So again, I just want to express my thanks to the United States for allowing me to do that, because it is an honor to serve this nation in so many different capacities. And many people have asked me throughout the years, what was it that led you to join the United States military? And they say, oh, you're such a petite, cute little thing. You know, how'd you end up in the military? Well, there are a lot of very strong women that serve in the military. And the reason I joined, it stems way back to when I was in school at Iowa State University. Between my freshman and sophomore year of college, I attended an agricultural exchange with Ukraine, which was at that time part of the Soviet Union. So I went with a group of students from Iowa, spent several weeks on a collective farm, and lived with members of that community. Remember, it's a communist country. And what struck me was that here we have the United States as a world power and the Soviet Union as a world power. And what I experienced on that farm was very different from the way I was raised on our family farm in Iowa. I did not come from a wealthy or privileged family. I came from a family of very, very modest means. But even in my family, we had so much more than the family that I lived with on that collective farm. They had no running water. They did not have a refrigerator. They did not have a telephone. They did not have a car. All of the family members shared one bicycle. That's how they got around the collective farm. And the collective farm itself was using horses and wagons to farm. This was in 1989. There was one telephone on that collective farm, and that belonged to the collective manager. And so he controlled who could make phone calls in and out of that community. In the evening, when we came together as community members and as Iowa students, we expected that we would share our experiences growing up on a farm, what it was like to be farming in Iowa, agricultural practices. They didn't want to know. They did not want to know about our ag practices. The questions that I got on that exchange were, what is it like to be an American? What is it like to live with your form of government? Tell us how it works. What is it like to live in a capitalist country? What is it like to be able to get in a car and go anywhere that you want to go without asking someone's permission? Those are the questions that they were asking. And so when I returned back to Iowa State that fall of my sophomore year, it really struck me how I didn't grow up with a lot, but I had so much more in this nation than the other world superpower, the people did in that nation. And they hungered for what we have. So very much that a few years after that exchange program, Ukraine became a sovereign nation. They wanted that independence, and they received that. So that struck me, and I decided that, I don't have money. I can't give back in that way to the United States, but what I do have is my personal time and my commitment to this country, and I can utilize my service to the nation as a way to give back. And so I joined Army ROTC and went on to become a second lieutenant. So it has been a great honor to serve. And I have enjoyed it so very much. It has further developed my leadership skills, and I think it's been an important part of who I am and how I am here in front of you today. So That's how I got into the military. That is my commitment to the United States of America, so much that I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom with 149 other wonderful soldiers from the great state of Iowa. But furthering that commitment to the state of Iowa, I've really had the opportunity in this new platform to work on issues that are not only important to Iowans, but they're also important to many of you as well. We really do have to come together and work on expanding a vibrant economy. So important. And I see so many failings right now in this administration on really prioritizing those issues. So working on a vibrant economy, ensuring that our veterans are receiving the promised benefits throughout the years that they have earned, whether that's through the VA or other types of commitments that we've made to them, making sure that our military has the necessary tools to defend our freedom and protect our interests and our Americans that are serving and working abroad. And also protecting Iowa's farmers who are really part of our breadbasket and providing food and fuel to not only the United States, but also to the world. And we see so many agencies that are coming down not only on our farmers, but also on all of our institutions across the United States with excessive rules and regulations. I do serve on 4 great committees in the United States Senate where I feel that these are outlets for me in ways that I can make a difference, whether it's overreaching government, whether it's protecting our men and women in uniform, whether it is working for the farmers that I represent here in the United States Senate. I serve on the Ag Committee, the Armed Services Committee, the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee, and the committee that I just dashed out of to come over here, our Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. And in there, it's Homeland Security, which is very important. But what people don't realize is that the governmental affairs portion is also extremely important too. Today we were talking about whistleblower protections and people that have come forward, identified waste, fraud, and abuse in our government, but they have been retaliated against. So we need to get serious about a government in protecting those that are trying to protect all of us. So those are the important things that we do there, as well as look at those excessive rules and regulations and things that are hampering our industry and our economy here in the United States. I do believe that America's greatness, it comes from all of you. It comes from the American people. It doesn't come from the government. And that's why these committees are so important, to make sure that we are keeping government in check. Iowans really know what's best for Iowa, and thank goodness they do, and that's why I'm here today to represent them. Right after I was sworn into office, I started my 99 county tour, and I will do this every year that I am in office. 99 counties, it takes a lot of time in Iowa, but that's my commitment to the people of Iowa, is that I will go to them in their home communities and listen to what is important to them. I will be directly accessible to them. That is important to me. And Iowans, they expect that. They expect to have easy access to me. And so I will honor that by doing the 99 county tour. So a few people have asked me along the last several months on what is big topics in Iowa? What are you hearing as you're out on that 99 county tour? And what I'm hearing about is the same items that I heard about during my campaign last year. They are worried about our economy. They are worried about our overwhelming debt. They are concerned because we haven't been able to get a budget in place over the last many, many years. They're concerned about education and why we don't have more local control of education. They're concerned about quality, patient-centered health care, not an excessive government-run program. They're concerned about national security, especially as we see what's going on overseas. in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen, in China, in North Korea, in Ukraine that I visited so many years ago. There's great concerns out there, and the folks in the heartland, they're concerned about those issues too. So some of the things that I have been able to work on since I have been here, first is a balanced budget. I am very proud to say that we did pass a budget this year. We have a budget that between the House, between the Senate, and the conference committee that came together to work out the differing areas, we do have a budget that will balance in a span of about 10 years. Now, maybe not fast enough for some of us. I don't know that it was fast enough for me, but it does balance eventually, and we are moving in the right direction. This is the first time that we have a budget that we have agreed upon between the two chambers that will balance in 10 years. In 10 years. We have not had that in 10 years. We have been operating off of continuing resolutions year after year after year, and that's no way to run any level of government, especially our federal government. So I am pleased that we are getting to the root of the problem. We're taking a look at the budget. We're taking a look at the out-of-control spending, and we are trying to grow a stronger, more vibrant economy. So looking at pro-growth policies, which we are implementing, working very, very hard to get in place, this just is common sense. It is common sense. I don't know of many folks, especially folks in this room, that can argue against that. These are the pro-growth policies that we want to see. And I am very optimistic that we are now moving in the right direction. And again, sometimes it might not be fast enough, but we are moving in the right direction. And that's better than sliding backwards, which is what I believe we have seen in the last several years. One bill that I am working on, and I'll just go over it briefly, but it is the Presidential Allowance Modernization Act. And I recently introduced this bill to change the system for providing former United States presidents certain types of benefits and perks that include, and not limited to, but they include communications, office space, staff, and travel expenses. And in fiscal year 2015, former U.S. presidents, they cost our taxpayers more than $2.4 million. There's just a few of them. We just have a few surviving members. And $2.4 million is a significant amount of money. Maybe not in the grand scheme of things, but it is somewhere that we need to start. So why not start here? This seems to be an easy one. If we start tackling these small, easy problems, we will be able to get our budget under control. But it has to be done a sliver at a time. This is a small sliver, but it's a start. So $2.4 million in travel, office space, communications, personnel, and other expenses. And it really gets back to taxpayer trust and gaining that trust back, because for so long our taxpayers have seen where we're just wasting money in the federal government. So we're looking at reforms in the allowances and perks that are given to these former presidents who do generate significant amounts of income after they leave office. Many of them give speeches, they'll accept honorariums, do certain visits, and it's not targeted at one party or another. This is both parties. So as they generate that income, we need to take a look at that and see, do we as taxpayers need to be subsidizing those levels of income for them? So we shouldn't be on the hook for that. And at a time when we have over $18 trillion in debt, things like this really start to make sense. So we've got to cut that wasteful spending. So what it does, it reduces the amount of perks available to those former presidents, dollar for dollar, for an annual income over $400,000. $400,000. The House already has companion legislation that they are working through. It has gone through committee over there. We're hoping to take it up on the floor. It does have broad bipartisan support. So I think that's an easy thing that we can get into place. Another piece of legislation that I am working on is the Program Management Improvement and Accountability Act. And this is all across our federal government. I have tried to target it within the Department of Defense, which I am a huge supporter of defense. But I still see that we have waste and abuse in that large agency. So what we can do is look across the spectrum and streamline federal government projects, which really have turned into large expenses for the taxpayers. What we want to do is adopt program management standards, practices, and procedures of high-performing private sector organizations. We have many great corporations that have streamlined their businesses, and we need to learn from that and model that in the federal government. So that's really what we're looking at, is identifying best practices and implementing them within the federal government. Another issue, I'm going to go off of kind of a broad spectrum and focus in on our veterans. An issue that I am very passionate about is veterans' mental health. And this was the first bill that I introduced in the United States Senate, and it's titled Prioritizing Veterans' Access to Mental Health Care Act. Just very recently, in February, we had a young man, an Iraqi war veteran, who was not able to get the type of care necessary through the VA in Iowa, and he committed suicide. Right now, we see about 22 veterans every day committing suicide. And one is too many. And so what we are doing with this bill is allowing veterans who need that mental health care, allowing them to go to a VA, and if they're turned away from the VA, and not able to receive the type of care that they need, what the VA will do is send them out with a written statement which will allow them to go to a mental health provider in their home community, a non-VA provider. So if we can get them access to mental health care faster, we need to do that. It is our obligation to make sure we are taking care of these men and women, some of them serving in very, very difficult circumstances and enduring many, many hardships that most of us cannot really grasp. And so making sure that they get the quality health care that they have earned and deserved has become a huge priority for me. So I will continue working on that. And again, hopefully, if we can prevent a veteran suicide, then we are on the right track. And finally, a piece of legislation that I'm working on, and I'll surprise you, I think probably many of you, the bill itself won't surprise you. I would like to arm the Kurds that live in Iraq. They currently fight against ISIS. The Kurds have been strong friends of ours for many, many years, about 3 decades now. They've been fighting alongside American servicemen and women in Iraq. I would like to arm them directly. Right now we have legislation where arms and equipment will go through Baghdad. It'll stop in Baghdad, and then hypothetically, it will get to the Kurdish people, and they'll be able to use it against ISIS. Well, we have conflicting information on whether the equipment actually gets to the people that need it in the Kurdish regional government. So I have proposed arming the Kurds. Now, what might surprise you is that my original co-sponsor for this bill is Senator Barbara Boxer of California. So I know that people in Iowa were saying, what the heck is going on? And I think the people in California were probably also saying, what the heck is going on? But what we have been able to do is find allies that have the same vision that we do, regardless of party, and try and get our legislation through. So she is very committed to the Kurdish people and has a large Kurdish population in her home state of California. The Kurds have been harboring over 1.6 million ethnic and religious minorities, including Christians. They take care of those people and continue to fight very successfully against ISIS. And what I wish to do is help them in that fight against ISIS. I want to help them protect the people that they are protecting. So that bill has been important to me. Their Peshmerga forces, again, have been great allies for our men and women in uniform, and I would like to assist them in their efforts. So in closing, we've gone over a lot of topics today, and I am very passionate. I'm passionate about being a conservative woman serving in the United States Senate. It has been a great honor to be there, and I look forward to many, many years of service to the people of Iowa and to the people of the United States. And I know that my audience here is by far and large young ladies. And I want to thank you for taking the time to be here, and thank you for taking the time to learn more about our conservative values. I want to thank the Heritage Foundation for allowing us to be here today as well. And if you can take away anything from today, I just want to emphasize that you can be a conservative woman, you can stand up for what you believe in, and you can make a difference. And it starts with one person. It doesn't matter where your inspiration is from, as long as you are standing up for what you believe in. So thanks again. It is a great honor to be with you today, and I think we can take a few questions if we have some time. I'd love to do that. Thank you.
We have about 5 minutes before Senator has to go to her next appointment.
Yes.
Do we have the mics here? Yes. Oh, yes.
Great,
okay.
thank you.
If you wouldn't mind, I'll let you call on people. If you would give your
Sure,
name.
we've got a few right here,
and your affiliation, and give a brief question since we have so little time. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Amber, and I'm with the Heritage Foundation. I actually attended your committee's hearing yesterday on government waste, and I really want to applaud your efforts for trying to cut down on spending. And I know at the hearing a lot of people talked about decentralization, and I was wondering, besides the Department of Education, what things do you think are better handled by states?
Oh, my heavens. I have
everything, right?
I have a long laundry list, but I do want to re-emphasize the Department of Education because that seemed to be very controversial in my campaign, because I really do believe that that needs to go back down to our states and our local authorities. Our parents know best how to educate our children. Our school administrators and our teachers, they know their populations best. So I don't know where in the Constitution it states that our federal government should be in charge of education. I haven't found it yet. So if somebody finds it, please let me know, and I'm happy to retract my statements. But there are other areas, and the EPA has been one that I've been extremely outspoken on as well. I do believe that we have to have overarching standards. We do. All of us want clean water, we want clean air, and we want clean soil. We know that we have to protect our world for future generations. We have to do that. But when it is at a cost to our citizens with overreaching regulations and rules that simply don't make sense, that's when we really need to take a step back and look at what our federal agency is doing. I do believe that our states have wonderful departments of natural resources. We have a wonderful Department of Agriculture in Iowa, and those departments work very well together to protect our environment. So I think that, again, we need to push that down to a much more localized level. We know that states can work together. We've seen examples of this in the past. Our resources are so different in every state. And the way I express it is that farms are important to me in Iowa. Well, a farm in Iowa is very different than a farm that you will find in Maryland, or a farm that you will find in Texas, or in Florida, or California, or Oregon. I could name all 50 states, and our farms are different. The locals know the local resources, and they know how to manage those resources. So that's another example for you. So we could go on. I think I could probably touch every federal agency in ways that they could push some of those responsibilities down to the localized level. But great question. Thank you. And one here in the back.
Hi, my name is Irina Grosu. I'm the director of the Center for Human Dignity at Family Research Council. And I know this morning Senator Graham introduced the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, and thank you for your co-sponsorship of it. Could you speak to the ways that you're working on the social issues, especially the life issue and also marriage?
Yes, I do co-chair the Values Action Team in the United States Senate, and I serve on that team with Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri, Tim Scott of South Carolina, and James Lankford of Oklahoma. And the four of us are very passionate about these topics. And so I was a proud co-sponsor with Lindsey Graham. He's doing a phenomenal job. And what we are doing is really working on educating the public as well, because when we are talking about the pain-capable bill and protecting life, if you start phrasing it not about a fetus that's at 20 weeks, but if you start talking about a baby at 5 months, not 20 weeks, but 5 months, most of the American public is horrified that someone would consider aborting a baby that's 5 months in the womb. So when you talk about it in that manner, people really start to sit up and pay attention, because you say 20 weeks and it just doesn't really sink in. So part of it really is the education process, and we're working very hard on that. We know that we do have a Supreme Court decision as far as marriage that will be coming up very soon, and protecting our religious liberties. And what we want to make sure, I'm not sure how that court decision is going to fall. I have supported the states' rights again in this area. I believe that our states can make those decisions. But what we want to see is that people's religious liberties are protected. That is important, that we're not favoring one group of people over the religious freedoms of another group. So there is a very delicate balance there. And there are great arguments, I'm sure, on both sides. But I have stood up for traditional marriage, and I have believed in life at conception. So we'll continue to stand for those values in the United States Senate. But again, educating the population, too, on what the Pain Capable bill really is. And once they hear what it is, they are likely to support it. Most people do not want late-term abortions or pain going to a baby that's in the womb.
One more very short question.
Danielle right here, thanks.
Wait for the mic, please.
Danielle Matson, not affiliated, Hello, I'm Danielle Matson. I'm not affiliated with an organization at this time, so I'll just say I'm affiliated with Jesus. But my question for you is, if you could go back to the beginning of your career, and you knew then what you know now, are there any pieces of advice, maybe 3 pearls of wisdom you could give us? That would be awesome.
Oh my goodness, that's a tall order right there. So, but going back, and I'm going to go way back to when I was in high school. I was always active in so many different types of organizations and activities. I think that made me, well, first I'll qualify that because I went to a very small school and there were 24 of us in my class. So you pretty much had to be involved in everything, or the school wouldn't have a team or a choir or a band. So all of us did everything. But I think it made me a very well-rounded person, and I was able to experience a lot by doing that. So that's the first thing, is I would encourage everyone to be involved. Find the areas that you love, things that you're passionate about, and become involved. That's the key right there initially. So when I was in high school, even though I was very active and involved, I never imagined that I would be a United States Senator. Never, ever. If you had asked me, Joni, are you going to be in politics someday? I would have said no. I hadn't even thought about that in high school. The second thing I think is important, and I've been sharing this with my daughter Libby over the past several months, is that explore all of your options. Explore them. Again, because I went to a really small high school in a very rural area. My parents are high school educated. They did not go to college. We did not travel widely. We stayed right there at home. And so I really didn't understand what options were available to me. My sister was accepted at Iowa State University, was kind of pushed there by one of our school counselors. She was very smart, math and sciences. So she went into engineering. And what she found is she got to Iowa State and it was too big for her. But because my sister was at Iowa State, I went to Iowa State. Which I loved. I will never regret that decision, ever. And I honestly wouldn't change it. But at the same time, I didn't realize that, even though I was being offered scholarships from other schools, I just knew that I was going to Iowa State because my sister was there. And it gave me some comfort in going there because she was there. Well, it was too big for her. She ended up moving back home and going to a community college. And so I was at Iowa State University. All of my family was back in southwest Iowa. But what I've encouraged Libby is that don't rely on one person. Don't go somewhere just because there's a person going there, but look at all of your options. Explore everything, whether it is a school, a technical school, whether it's the military, whether you wish to travel abroad first, and then maybe go to school. Just look at the different options that are available to you and just learn what's out there. I think that's so important. And then the last, I guess, pearl of wisdom and that I would give to you, and it is one of, I think, the most important things, is this: whenever you start anything, whether it's a career in an industry or politics, whether you're teaching others, know who you are and what you stand for. Be comfortable with yourself. I find so many, especially candidates, when they get onto a political trail, they're unsure of what they stand for, and they're not sure how to answer a question. There are tough questions out there, especially social issues. When they are asked, what do you stand for and how do you feel about those issues? Just be comfortable with yourself. And if you're comfortable with yourself, then you can take all the slings and arrows that are coming at you. I was in a very tough race. And believe me, every day they seem to throw something else at me. Well, you believe this, so you're wrong. Well, you know what? I don't feel that. And the people that mean the most to me, my family, my friends, the colleagues that I work for and work with, they know me and they know the truth. And I know the truth. So being comfortable with yourself and knowing what you stand for will carry you through that day. You're a godly woman, so understanding, where you stand in the grand scheme of things will really take you through. So those are the words of wisdom that I would like to leave you with. I know there are so many others that maybe you could all share with me, but I would encourage you to go forth and do great things. Know what you stand for and then pursue it, because one person can make a significant difference in the lives of others, and that's what you will do. I know that for certain. So thanks so much for your time and attention. Thank you. God bless you.
Just a couple little gifts, and then you can shoot. Okay?
Thank you.
Oh, my bag's down there, so you can go first.
Oh, goodness.
We're so grateful
Thanks,
to you for
Bridget.
coming,
Thank
Senator.
you. Oh,
I know how
goodness.
busy you are inspiring us.
Well, let me go ahead and give you,
Thank
from the
you.
Heritage Foundation,
Oh,
you referenced the Constitution.
I love it.
And I love that a senator actually asked the question, where does it say it in the Constitution? So the Heritage Guide to the Constitution.
Does it speak to the Department of Education?
It's not in
Is
there.
that-
It's not in there. It's not in there. You were absolutely right. It's not in the Constitution. So you can
Thank
have a
you
copy for your
so much.
office.
Thank you very much. I
And
appreciate
here's our
it.
official coffee mug.
Oh,
with
I love it.
her
The
saying,
Claire Booth Luce Foundation.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Oh,
That was her
fantastic.
sense of
Thank
humor.
you.
Here is this year's calendar.
Oh, I love
and
it. I love
want to
it.
announce that Senator Ernst's picture has already been taken for next
Yes,
year's
it has.
calendar. And it's beautiful. The photographer told me how
I
great it
never
was.
knew I would end up in a calendar.
With all these great women. And then we give you our little bag to put all your
I love
gifts
it.
in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank
Bless
you
you all. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
I know you got a scoop.
Thank you.
We've
I
got
use
lunch.
this bag all the time.
Please join us for
great.
lunch outside
it's
where we can
great.
continue the conversation.